Hey guys, and welcome back to a new Path of Exile 2 video. Today I want to do a quick overview of one specific item and the many interesting uses of it. The Vaal Orb, aka what corrupts your items. This sounds like a scary concept as a new player, maybe more than it really is. You could corrupt an item and then be able to sell it for a much greater value than what you started with. You could take a skill gem and add a socket in a way you otherwise couldn't to give yourself a early power boost. You could add a third socket to an item beyond the normal limits, or just take an item that rolled badly and turn that around. So it's very potent and is used for a bunch of different reasons. So yeah, I've been learning about it. I want to talk about it. So the effects of a Vaal Orb is pretty varied. The description says that it will modify an item unpredictably, but doesn't tell us what that means. And then it corrupts it. So the downside of a corrupted item is that its stats can no longer be modified by other currency. So once you corrupt something, that's kind of the item as it is now. So you could turn an item around, or you could quote unquote break an item. So you want to do this with some knowledge of what you're doing. You could take a great base item that you're just not happy with the rolls of the affixes that you got. With equipment that might do a number of things. You could give it a second implicit, which could be really potent. You could add another socket going from 2 here to 3. But yeah, you can also change the numbers of those affixes, making something very incredible. It's my understanding that you can reroll half of the affixes on an item with a Vaal. But obviously, you could also randomly ruin those numbers that you've got, reduce the value greatly, get something you don't want. It's a gamble. Now, advice I've seen in regards to Vaal Orbs with what to do with what kind of item, it varies, but there's good guidelines to consider. The main thing I would suggest is to never Vaal something that you regret if it goes wrong. So let's say I really need this chess piece that I'm about to Vaal for this example. That would be a bad idea because if I ruin this item, that's it. And if I need this item, that'd be a mistake. So if it's something you're willing to gamble, you're good. But otherwise, don't risk it. But to give yourself the best chance, you want to commit however much you feel valuable. And how much you want to commit to it is up to you. So we could increase this quality all the way up to 20%, the cap. We could make sure that it's actually got 6 affixes on it. So let's do that with these gloves. Make sure it's got 6 affixes. And you could also put it to the cap of the sockets that it has. So chest piece 2 and gloves, that'd be 1. All of these set up the item with more potential to mess with, but remember, you're committing more resources to something that could just fail, so weigh that up whatever you're willing to do. And when you're ready, we're going to Vaal it to see what happens. So in this case, we rerolled the life regen per second from 2.3 to 13.4. We kept the fire resistance, it wasn't changed, but now the cold resistance is completely gone. Instead, we have 25% reduced attribute requirements, which is pretty terrible. The evasion rating stayed the same, armor and evasion, and the armor roll. And we didn't get a new socket. So overall, a pretty bad Vaal. By comparison, let's try it on these gloves. Okay, so we lost again the cold resistance, but we gained a different kind of leech. Now we have the mana leech, but that's relatively it that happened. So this is a great example of how, not much can really happen. Nothing exciting, nothing worth doing. So on rares, I wouldn't really recommend doing this just constantly, especially to items you're going to use. But this could have gone a totally different way. Things that would make sense to Vaal are items that are going to get, say, a real big percent increase on something that's just rolled poorly. Like say a physical weapon like this. Let's say the increased physical damage percent there was quite a low roll. This one is a decent roll, almost the top. But if that was a low roll, I could value this in the hopes of turning that roll around. Maybe I get a third socket on this and I could add another 20% increased physical damage. That'd be great too. But ultimately, I need this item, and it's a good item in its current state, so I wouldn't risk a Vaal Orb on it because that could really backfire. But I will say that 20 accuracy rating, that 35% reduced attribute requirements, has me at least thinking about it, because I might re-roll those into something more relevant. But at the end of the day, the item needs to be one that I'm willing to basically delete if it goes wrong, so that being a very real possibility, I wouldn't risk it in this case. Now interestingly, this applies to much more than just equipment. Let's look at different ways you can use Vaal Orbs beyond that. For example, your skill gems. As you can see, this is a skill gem with 4 sockets, but it's not corrupted. Meanwhile, my Plasma Blast, this is corrupted and it has 4 sockets on it. For one of these, I did use a greater jeweler orb to give it that last slot, whereas for Plasma Blast, I instead used a Vaal Orb. Let me show you an example. When you take a skill gem, you Vaal Orb it and can have anything happen. From nothing, like nothing changes, you could actually raise or lower its skill level by 1, either way. So if you had a level 20 gem, you could actually raise it to 21 using a Vaal Orb. In this case though, we're adding a socket, meaning I have 4 support slots without having to use a greater jeweler's orb. This is a very common technique, especially while you're like early progressing a character, to save you having to use that greater orb. The thing about this is it can also add or remove quality too. So the technique for this is to not take the one you're actually using and create a new one. Even a low level one. You take this new version of the skill you're interested in, and then first you'll increase its sockets to 3 using a lesser jeweler's orb, so that if it gets added +1 socket, that'll put it to 4 instead of 3. And then you just roll the dice. Maybe you get lucky and it adds a socket, maybe it removes one, maybe nothing happens. But instead of gambling something important, you gambled a low level skill gem, so who cares? You can do this multiple times as much as you're willing to, risk the resources, and hopefully pretty quick you'll get that 4th support slot. This is something that I do whenever I don't really want to use a jeweler's orb, but certainly a handy trick. The thing is, as you can see, this also works on jewels. Here we've got a corrupted emerald, so it's messed with the rolls that are on this. So I'm going to give it a try on this jewel that I have here. Jewels are interesting by comparison because, we have a smaller list to work with. It can go up to 4, and this one has 3 in this case. It's very reasonable to buy like a 3 or 4 affix jewel, and then maybe you roll the dice and Vaal it. This then can give it a new implicit mod, or actually a 5th mod. But obviously when you Vaal something, it might do nothing, it might remove a mod, it might re-roll half the mods. So again, like everything, you don't do this if it's something you're not willing to risk, but I am in this case, especially for this footage and example. So we have 10% increased fire damage, 16% increased armor, and 10% increased stun threshold. Let's Vaal it, and now it's corrupted. It still has the 10% stun threshold, but we've lost the fire damage and we've lost the armor. Now we have a % chance to inflict bleeding. We also have interesting magnitude of ignite. That could be valuable because magnitude of shock, say for my build, is actually quite valuable. So I'll have to look into maybe being able to sell this now. There is something I could Vaal Orb, but it'd be a big risk. Here's an emerald that I really like. It's got my lightning at damage, it's got my attack speed, element damage, and the benefit of crossbow reload speed. Maybe I could add a 5th mod to this, or give it a new implicit. Maybe I could re-roll that crossbow reload speed into something more relevant. Or maybe I'll absolutely mess this jewel up, and therefore it's not worth the risk. So again, if it's important, don't Vaal it, because it can go wrong. Next, let's talk about a totally different thing, like a waystone. This is actually very common to Vaal a waystone. In the endgame, on tier 15 waystones like this in particular. After all, a higher tier waystone will mean higher difficulty enemies, which have better drop potential. For example, you need enemies to be level 82 before level 20 skill gems can actually drop, at least based on the wiki information. So, say a tier 15 waystone, that normally has level 79 enemies. If we were to Vaal a waystone to make it a tier 16, well now they'd be level 80. There are other map mods that can increase level, like, irradiated, adding +1, or say corruption, that also adds 1. There are also things in the Atlas skill tree, like the map boss difficulty increase, raising the level by another. So taking a waystone and Vaaling it could increase the tier level, but just like other things, it can do a whole host of other things. Re-rolling the affix numbers, adding new ones. Check out this example. You can see how the waystone drop chance actually goes up. There's new mods like additional packs or increased magic monsters. More rare chests are going to appear. But then some negatives like monster attack speed, that affix went up. And now not only were the monsters evasive, but now on top, they're also armored. That's rough. So ultimately, if you can deal with the added difficulty for greater reward, Vaaling waystones is a good thing to attempt. The last topic I want to talk about is uniques, and that's why I've got this one here. It can be a pretty awesome thing to do. Uniques can roll with poor affix numbers, and by Vaaling it, you might turn a bad roll into a great one. So here, with the Widowhail Crude which is a great example, normal numbers are something like 150 to 250. So let's say we got a, 160% roll on this. I could Vaal it to hopefully change those numbers to be better, worth using or maybe sellable. But just like other items, we could mess with the implicits, getting a new one. We could also re-roll the affixes in general, or maybe even add another socket. Now, based on the information I've read, the numbers seem to be anywhere from about a -23% or another 23% added. Somewhere in between those numbers. Meaning, you could get like, +1%, which would suck, but it's possible. But interestingly, for uniques, it does something a little bit weird. It seems like it's not just re-rolling, but it's also divining, which randomizes the values of the modifiers on an item. So when you val a unique, it can greatly change it beyond that 23% limit. The fact that you can do this without actually spending a divine is super high in potential. Therefore, using a Vaal Orb on a low rolled unique is a really good idea. It could massively change, not just a bit. So if you have a unique that has potential but just roll poorly, I would generally try the Vaal. If it's not worth anything anyway, might as well. There's also omens that can greatly change stuff, like the Omen of Corruption. While this item is active in your inventory, your next Vaal Orb will be even more unpredictable, which is wonderfully vague, but it is something people are doing on, say, some of the best uniques to reroll in the hopes of getting a really positive result. So I want to credit a Reddit post that talks about this and is giving their results and discussions. People are saying what they've done, putting kind of information out there for some results to consider. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced your name, but the post was made by Ikeda Koyuiji, who couldn't find, say, a post about this kind of community effort, so is doing it themselves. There's lots of good information here about generally using Vaal Orbs on uniques, and even a special listing about some of the more interesting or popular uniques to Vaal, like the Bell of Ingenuity, or say the unique I showed, Widowhail. The reason for that is that these have few affixes to actually reroll, so you're going to target the thing you actually care to reroll. But yeah, there you have it. That's my little overview of some of the interesting ways and reasons people are using Vaal Orbs. I hope this gives you some insight into what I've been learning about myself, and if you guys have any extra information or tips, let us know in the comments. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.